Hello all. How did you like this week's discussion? I appreciate your sharing your thoughts and your experiences. The depth of our discussion was increased by your willingness to discuss your personal experiences. It is good for us to be aware of the way we think and cognizant of possible biases we or the learner may have. Our question 1 was designed to get us to examine assumptions that we may have or that we may have experienced during our education, and how the bias affected our learning or teaching experiences. It was revealed in our discussion that we believe biased traditions exist in the college environment. It was brought to our attention that some professors and students may be so immersed in an assumption that they do not recognize when a statement occurs in a class that could affect a marginalized group of students. However, we discovered that a resolution can occur if the unchecked assumption is brought to the attention of the professor or learner and discussed. We discussed how a professor's enthusiasm for one topic over another could display a bias that the professor has for the subject. We recognize that our experiences shape how we view topics, and at times it's difficult to remain objective. When we feel a deep connection to a topic, we need to check our bias so that we can present material in a way that allows the learner to form his or her opinion. While we discussed the experience of being placed in a biased presentation could be difficult, we determined that it could also require us to think critically and reflectively about how we believe and how we should present our views. We considered the fact that people are not meant to be entirely free of bias. Being tolerant of others' points of view is where we get our diversity and autonomy. However, when we are aware of a bias that could hinder learning, we should try to present the material in a fair manner. Our question 2 was designed around critical thinking. It was created in a way that would encourage us to think about how we critique thoughts and actions. We recognize that critical thinking is imperative to survival. We built on question 1 by stating that education requires a certain amount of bias to create friction in thoughts. This could be done through the simulation of a created, disorienting dilemma. The professor could play the devil's advocate, forcing the students to discuss two opposing points of view. However, it was determined in our discussion that the instructor should have a goal to not overshadow the topic with his or her bias. After reflecting on Merriam and Bremer's statement that thinking critically begins with an examination of your assumptions. An assumption is a deeply held belief that guides your thought and actions. We determined that critical thinking could require the learner to self-correct and monitor his or her way of thinking. It was pointed out when we present a topic that is perceived as controversial, we should critique our biases toward the topic and prepare to facilitate the discussion in a fair and unbiased manner. We realize that by educating students to potential biases and perspectives, it would assist us in encouraging the learner to think critically. Before taking this course, I was unaware of the many theories that exist in adult education. I find the information fascinating, and I look forward to learning with and from each of you. Thank you for participating in the discussion.